To defeat an enemy, you must know them. Not just their battle tactics, but their history, philosophy, art. Welcome to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to
the Chiss Ascendancy.
You are listening, watching, and enjoying. We just have these things that we build up on.
Yeah, you started that like 5 weeks ago.
Yeah,
You've really been liking it.
We're gonna start having episodes that are 2 hours long, and the first hour is just the intro. Thank you so much for tuning into the Chiss Ascendancy podcast. This is episode 125.
I made it.
1, 2, 5. Yeah, that's another one. Episode 10, episode 12. We made it. And then we didn't do the hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Chiss Ascendancy from the jump. It was like 4 or 5 episodes in. That's carried over.
Yeah.
The we made it joke is carried in, and we've been listening, watching, and enjoying for the last month and a half.
You've got to do like an Anchorman where she was like trying out sign off phrases for, feeling like, oh, that's the one.
That's the one. You got to know.
That's the one.
Welcome back to Buttery Biscuits. So, as you can see, if you are watching on YouTube, this week's episode, we're focusing on the Bendu.
The Bendu.
Ah, yes.
He talks like the guy from... It's been a long day. What's
a long day?
Omega Code?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
It's been a mentally full day. Josiah's mocking me because I
go ahead.
took Benadryl last night and slept till like 2:30 in the afternoon. So
yeah,
it's Tuesday.
You're thinking of the Omega Code 2 Megiddo.
Yeah.
Whenever the Satan and the Antichrist and all that, you have Michael York is the actor's name.
He reads one of the, if you listen to it on audiobook, one of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe books.
Yes, he does. Yeah, Michael York. And he was around for a while. He was John the Baptist in one of the old, back in the day, like in the 80s, they were like, what's going to sell at the box office this year? Another movie about Easter. There's a lot of those.
Yeah.
And so Michael York, I think he was John the Baptist, if I'm not mistaken, in one of the movies from back in the day. But yes, if you were raised in a very sheltered Christian home, you too may have watched Megiddo, which is it's not in the title, but that's the Omega Code 2. And
it's the subtitle.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, he, at the end, it's very terrifying if you're 6 years old, comes out of the head
If you're watching it as an adult in 2026, it has similar vibes to the hell scene in Spawn.
Oof.
But it's
Spawn,
like they spent all of their FX
on hell
dollars. No, they spent all of them on like the first 90% of the movie, and then it looks like they rendered it for PlayStation 2 graphics
at the very end.
And yeah, it's terrible.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Yeah, so the Antichrist obviously is the devil incarnate and things like that. I don't know what I believe about the end times after, growing up. But long story short, Michael York is the devil, and then this purple, I don't know what to call it. It looks like a gargoyle from the show Gargoyles, pops out, and then whenever
it's like if Spyro was bad.
Yeah, the freaking, oh my gosh. I think I'm going to have to put the clip in here for those who are watching online.
Satan, Lucifer,
the CGI pieces of Michael York's body that fly all over the screen whenever his body explodes after the devil crawls out of his head is hilarious. Okay, so obviously that's the Bendu. So
just in case you're curious,
for those of you who are watching or listening, and obviously probably enjoying the episode at home, one thing that we're very excited about, that we're very proud of, is that we try to bring, the tagline for the podcast when we first started this thing was Star Wars thoughts from wild space. And so
That's what the devil looks like in Spawn the Hell scene.
oh man, that's fantastic.
It's pretty awful.
That is awesome. We want to bring some of the crazier, more niche, weirder parts of Star Wars to the forefront for the average fan. We realize that we are strange. We realize that we're not your average bear. And so for friends of ours who grew up liking Star Wars or knowing the movies, things like that, or just people who have found the podcast over the years, we want to bring something from the corner of the Star Wars universe and then put it right there at the front of the stage of your Star Wars heart. And so shows back in the day, like Clone Wars, Rebels, stuff like that, wasn't as mainstream as it has come to be today, which is great.
That's fine. Yeah. I took a lot of flack for it. I walked so Star Wars fans of today could run.
Yeah. I can remember being in middle school and we would have what's called a Deer Day in Miss Quiring's office. And DEAR stood for Drop Everything and Read.
Mm-hmm.
As an adult, I'm realizing these were days that she was just stressed out and didn't want to do anything, which I appreciate. But Miss Q, rest in peace, she was amazing. She would have a Deer Day, and it was just like, hey, if you have a book, get a book. If you want to get something off the shelf, if you want to whatever. I remember actually her husband at some point came up to the school.
It was one of the parents in my class.
Was it?
Mm-hmm. That built the loft. It
was freaking cool. So basically in the corner of Miss Q's room was as we mentioned, a loft with a little ladder that basically it lifted you like 3 feet in the air, but it felt like you were just going to the tippy tops of the trees in the movie Tarzan.
Yeah.
And nobody else could get you there. And there was a couple of pillows and stuff. Nothing crazy, but just something to be comfortable.
It was pretty dope. It was pretty dope.
And all that to say, kind of going back to what we were talking about, walking so the Star Wars fans now can run, crawling really sometimes, but we would have a Deer Day, drop everything and read. And I was reading The Bounty Hunter Wars by K.W. Jeter, and I was getting so much crap for reading a Star Wars book in middle school. This would have been like 2005, 6, 7, something like that. But so now it's very cool because we have a podcast that people actually listen to and watch videos and stuff like that. And so we still are bringing the craziest things from the bottom of our Star Wars trunks to be like, and this, and this. The Bendu is one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, he's a little bit more accessible because he's in one of the more popular shows that people will watch. I guess probably not more popular. Most people I feel are going to be watching the live action Star Wars stuff like Kenobi or Andor or Mando.
Rebels was coming out before we even had Disney Plus, so you had to, and it was on Disney XD, which is such a pain in the butt.
Yeah, I think
you had to really go looking for it
because Clone Wars was on Netflix at one point, and I think that Rebels was on Netflix for a short period of time. But it wasn't as easy to get to as it is now, right? Mm-hmm. And so by the time you've gone through all the legwork of getting to the point where Bendu's on screen, it almost feels like a fever dream because you've gone through so much content. This is after you've already had the Loth Wolf thing, isn't it?
The Bendu is definitely in season 3 minimum because you're dealing with Kanan who's blind and you're dealing with the Sith holocron thing, that the whole Maul and Ezra conundrum. I want to say that the episode you're thinking of where you meet the really big
talking about when they're like
called Doom.
They're like teleporting.
D-U-M-E. I think the teleporting wolves are going to be later in season 3.
Okay.
But they're in the same season. You're definitely high on Star Wars shrooms.
So it's like
the whole 3rd season of Rebels.
We're seeing some stuff that if you've only watched movies and shows, this is like, if you read the books, this is not even close to the weirdest stuff that you'll see. But
what's
just
cool,
shows it's like you don't really see people force teleporting ever.
Right.
You know what I mean? So you're seeing now kind of seemingly omniscient creatures, in the Bendu where they're not just people.
Yeah. One of the things that's really cool is right around this time, maybe a little bit before this, but not too, it's somewhere in that same kind of couple of years, is when we were getting stuff like the Fate of the Jedi series would have obviously been before this because Fate of the Jedi was before the Disney purchase, but you're getting stuff like that in that kind of 10-year span, right before the purchase from Disney. And then obviously Rebels was something that Disney started like really quickly in their ownership with Dave Filoni at the helm. So having characters like the ones from Clone Wars, having characters like Abeloth, which has a huge relationship with the ones, you find out if you read the Fate of the Jedi series, and then having characters like the Bendu and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's all kind of the same part of the same mystical world that the Loth Wolves are kind of a part of, obviously on a smaller scale. And the World Between Worlds and stuff like that. I think Rebels really capitalizes and captures the mystical side of Star Wars. You have that in Clone Wars when you have the ones and you have Yoda's
in the Mortis arc.
That's where exactly. The Mortis arc where we go to Mortis.
Are you saying the ones as the people on Mortis and then the Wills separate from them?
Yes, okay. The Wills separate on Yoda's journey, and then the ones is kind of like the overall banner that the father, son, and daughter are underneath.
Feel you see a lot more dark side sorcery in the Clone Wars, I would say, between the Night Sisters and when you have Palpatine and Dooku kind of working together to do the Sith rituals while Yoda is on Korriban.
Yep.
Pretty cool.
Moraband,
sorry.
Which sometimes I get confused if Moraband is supposed to replace Korriban or if they're
so similarly named. You have to believe that they're trying to borrow a little bit from the lore of the Bane trilogy because he's kind of got his burial place there.
Yeah, I think that, Moraband will end up being... I think Korriban still exists. I mean, for sure it still exists.
I think it replaces the significance of Korriban.
Correct. I think you're on the right path. But yeah, you get some good dark side stuff in Clone Wars, and then in Rebels, you do get some Sith sorcery just from Palpatine. Obviously, Vader's not really on the sorcery side. I would like to see more of that from him.
Yeah, you kind of have like an inverse... Bane-Zana relationship with Palpatine and Vader, where Vader's kind of more of a juggernaut, brute force strength in the Force, and Palpatine's more of the cunning Sith sorcery. Obviously very martially adept, but that's not where his greatest power is, in my mind.
Yes. Yeah. Palpatine he's just so well-rounded.
Yeah.
Like he's a fantastic swordsman, but his brain is his greatest tool, his cunning.
Right. Well, and the Rule of Two is canon, so I'm going to believe that the intent of the Rule of Two as we read it in the Bane trilogy is still very much alive. So you have to believe he is the culmination of the Sith.
Palpatine?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole idea is that
and Anakin
they're successively stronger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Anakin should have been, and he's physically more imposing than the Emperor, but in a one-on-one straight-up matchup, I think Palpatine is...
Yeah, you kind of see the unseating of the Rule of Two in that Luke and Vader have to gang up on Palpatine to overthrow him.
Yeah.
Where the idea is the whole point of the Rule of Two is that there is one who is the more powerful of the two. And if there's more than one, that upsets that equation.
Yeah, this could turn into a whole episode about the Rule of Two because there's so many like bendings of the rule, especially during the Clone Wars era.
Yeah, especially I think you see maybe Palpatine is like, we're pretty much there.
Yeah, I think that, you see, I totally agree. I think Palpatine starts to feel like we've arrived.
Yeah.
And therefore, I am the culmination. Palpatine obviously is very arrogant.
Yeah.
Right?
Rightfully so.
Understandably and rightfully so.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that he shouldn't be.
I see how he gets to the conclusions that he draws.
Yes.
You know,
I think that the Rule
fair
of Two,
enough.
I can see a world where Palpatine abandons the Rule of Two.
Well, and
especially if he does eventually, we don't know, because Vader's murder of him kind of halts the progression. I'm very curious to know, like I could sit down with Dave Filoni or George Lucas and say, let's say that Luke doesn't turn and Vader tries to save his son, but the Emperor ends up killing both of them on the Death Star 2. The goal in that scene is for Luke to kill Vader if you're Sidious.
Right.
Vader has run his course, his youthfulness.
It's almost like, again, I'm really high on the Bane trilogy because I just finished it again. But Bane has already handpicked a successor just in case Xana isn't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, all right, you sit over there and just watch, and whoever wins, you work for them now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's almost like if Vader does somehow overthrow Palpatine, now you've got the new apprentice.
Yeah.
If Luke is stronger than Vader, again, you've got the new apprentice.
Yeah, I think Bane was much more open to the concept of maybe he can't defeat Zana just because of his decline, because of all the ailments and the armor and stuff.
Well, and he's also talking to somebody who's got, as far as we know, the strongest foresight in the dark side sphere. And she's like, hey, I don't really know who's going to win. Bane's like, yeah, I don't either. We're pretty evenly matched.
Yeah.
It could go either way.
I think that Palpatine doesn't feel that way at all.
Again, rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
I feel like
I think
you don't really see any. We've talked about this a lot in the past, but I feel like we don't really see very much of what Palpatine's capable of outside of a few handpicked scenes that I could name from books.
Yeah, you've got to read the Revenge of the Sith novelization.
I know it's on the list. I just have a lot of other things.
This is the most important thing
fantasy
in your life.
pre-order was just available last night, so I'll start listening to that. It's the final in a prequel trilogy to a 12-book series that I've already finished and committed to.
Okay.
So
I was about to say, if you've got the prequel and then 12 books had Revenge of the Sith,
no. So, well, it's a 9-book series, and then there's a more leading up to the 9-book prequel trilogy, and then there's a couple of thousand years before in another part of the continent trilogy. It's very, very good.
Very involved.
Very, very good.
So I think that ultimately Palpatine's plan was turn Luke. I think he expected Luke to kill Vader.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe the offspring of Anakin Skywalker could be strong enough to be the next Sith Lord. I don't see a world for those 20 years. I think that Sidious was probably actively seeking out either a replacement for Vader or thinking we have arrived, once more the Sith will rule the galaxy, all that concept.
Yeah.
And because Anakin had failed so miserably on Mustafar, there was a clear enmity and hatred toward Vader because of his shortcomings, because he was supposed to be the same way that Obi-Wan is like, you were the chosen one.
Mm-hmm.
Palpatine sees Vader and thinks you are supposed to be the culmination of the Sith. What's more dark side than taking the chosen one created by the Force itself to bring balance and then turning that into a Sith? That's the most badass Sithery there is.
Yeah,
and Anakin fell short because of his failures on Mustafar.
I can see where you're coming from. On the other hand, he just did successfully kill hundreds and hundreds of Jedi.
He
Vader. He just stormed
at the temple?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
right.
What,
but the final test for him.
I don't really know that there
Obi-Wan.
was spite towards him over that. I think it was just okay, maybe we have more to learn than I thought, or maybe I misjudged the weakness that you have for Obi-Wan.
I think there's for sure a spitefulness.
Well, I think that's just the way of the dark side.
I think that
as Bane is hey, it's natural that these things are going to happen because it's the way of the dark side. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The reason I say I think there's a hatred there is because he didn't give him a suit that augmented his abilities. The suit, well documented, is to cause pain.
Yeah, but if you're a dark side user and you're drawing on that for strength.
Okay. I understand that point. My counter to that would be someone who is basically on life support, but the suit helped him and made him stronger and did not limit him, is someone like Malgus. Malgus and Vader are in similar situations.
I mean, to a degree, he was still, dependent on it.
Okay. The point I'm trying to make is Malgus, thousands of years before Vader, could use Sith lightning.
Okay.
Whereas Vader's suit is made on purpose to be susceptible to what? Sith lightning. What is Palpatine's?
But do you think of that as spite towards Vader in the sense of I don't want you to ever be better, or it's like his way of asserting dominance over Vader that like you'll never be able to take this from me.
I think that
Because I could, following the line of this discussion, and if you're wondering, this isn't the Bendu. We're talking about the balance of the Force, which is Bendu's whole thing. So we'll get to that. I could see Palpatine being like, I just need a tool right now. I don't need a successor.
to your point, the quote that Sidious says to Yoda is Darth Vader will be stronger than either of us, more powerful than either of us. Another point, Sidious says to, I can't remember
That
who.
was before he knew that he failed. Before Palpatine knew that Vader had failed against Obi-Wan.
Right. That's my point.
Okay. Well, I'm saying I think maybe, I don't know. I think there's a lot to unpack, and it's really hard to definitively ascribe anything to Palpatine's aspirations because he is intentionally complex and unknowable. I think they've just kind of put him a little bit beyond reach for the sake of having that presence there.
Yeah. I think that my point is,
I get where you're coming from.
two things. The Sith are supposed to gradually get better and better and better and better and better, right? You have Sidious who kind of bends the rules in the Plagueis novelization, in my personal opinion. It's not it's not a straight up he beat Plagueis. It's a
I
he
think
got him drunk and then shocked him to death.
Yeah, I mean, I
Spoiler
guess
alert.
part of that is like, he was weak, couldn't defend himself while he was
Part
drunk.
of that is the cunning, right? Which is a huge deal of the Sith, a huge tool of the Sith.
Right.
I think my point is, for
He's like,
1,000
been
years,
vulnerable.
we've been bringing this to a head.
Well,
and now you've stunted the growth of the Sith. Now, that being said,
to be fair, Palpatine was under Plagueis, who at this point was pretty much ready to put an end to the rule of two.
yes,
He wasn't saying, hey, you're going to be better than me and kill me eventually. He was like, we'll just have our different roles in ruling the galaxy, because he was like, we're pretty much here. We're going to take over.
that
in my lifetime.
and I think that's part of my wondering of Palpatine's thoughts. Obviously,
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, and you were talking Legends versus, canon here, but, to my mind, because I can't separate the two because they haven't replaced the lore for Plagueis yet.
Yeah.
If you have that as Palpatine's master, then you're like, okay, well, now I can kind of call the shots and I can bend the rules as I see fit, which I guess is the prerogative of the Sith master, to kind of call the shots and decide, hey, we're going this way as an order.
Right.
Pretty easy to do when there's only two of you. But you also see him much more thoroughly establish kind of a Sith hierarchy like you hadn't seen since the time of the Sith Empire, where he's kind of got the Inquisitors, which I would consider more like the Assassins or the Acolytes. And
Right.
you know what I mean? Like there's definitely levels to dark side force usury, which he's okay with and allies with and kind of, pulls the strings.
Yeah.
So it's like he's not concentrating the dark side.
And the Savage presses and those like things like that. Black and white clear as crystal back in the day, it was two Sith and the only Darksiders are Sith. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, the Night Sisters are technically Darksiders, but they're not Sith, but they're also kind of not purely evil as we kind of see the Sith are supposed to be. And then you had Maul, and you're like, okay, that's Lord of the Sith. And then you have Sidious. And then you fast forward and you have the Plagueis novel, and Plagueis thinks that Maul is a complete piece of crap.
Yeah.
And
Plagueis is like not good enough.
Yeah,
too
and
impulsive,
he's an animal and things of that nature. And then you have Sam Witwer talking about Sidious would have picked Maul. He wouldn't have picked somebody that he was inept.
Right.
Because the rule of two. And then my thought is Plagueis and then, of course, Sidious kind of start to abandon the rule of two, because the rule of two was to bring the Sith to a point to where they could take back what they thought was rightfully theirs, which they had achieved.
Right.
So part of me wonders if Sidious ever planned on passing anything along to the next generation, because his whole thing was, now that I've taken the galaxy back over and the Sith now rule the known galaxy, eternal life is the next goal.
Yeah. So
all that to say, the Bendu is a fantastic character.
Which brings me to my next point.
But the quote that I have here at the very beginning of the notes, I was gonna bring a cutout, like a cardboard cutout, to decorate the set for the Bendu, but it would cover up the whole house. Okay. So we meet the Bendu, and one of the very, very first things that he says to Kanan Jarrus, Jedi Knight, is the Jedi and the Sith wield the Ashla and the Bogan. Ashla being the light side of the Force, the Bogan
Right.
being the dark side of the Force. He says,
Which,
the
by
light
the
and
way,
the dark.
I believe is first established in the Bane trilogy.
Well, are we talking?
I think in a different way, but you know what I mean?
Are we talking about in universe?
Yeah.
Okay.
When they're going to the core worlds and they're like, this is where both the Jedi and the Sith began. You know, they were just kind of Force users, and then there became the dark side and the light side that kind of then went to war.
Yeah.
The Ashla won.
Well, the thing that's interesting is that the people who, according to the lore, the people who were able to first kind of what the monks that would become the Jedi were actually called the Dai Bendu, which we'll get into later.
Mm-hmm.
But fun fact, whenever Ahsoka goes undercover, she takes the name Ashla, right? Which is kind of a dead giveaway if you ask me. But the Bendu says Jedi and the Sith wield the Ashla and the Bogan, which is kind of like a timestamp. You know, well, people are like, I'm dating myself here, but I saw that was in concert.
Yeah.
You know, him mentioning that the Jedi and the Sith wield the Ashla and the Bogan lets you know just how long the Bendu's been in the game.
Yeah.
And
or
then he
at
says,
least the depth of awareness that he has of the history of the Force.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That he's kind of seen some things. He has a lot more clarity than probably your surface level fan would.
Yeah.
You know?
And he says, the light and the dark. I'm the one in the middle. The Bendu. That's kind of his thing. Is he's
That
the
is
one in
his
the middle.
thing. Yeah. He speaks for the trees.
He does. He is very Loraxy.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions of Bendu back in the day?
What the heck?
What that mean?
What the heck? That's pretty much it. You know, and I think even to this day we have
What?
Okay.
ahead.
Yeah. Give me a
I'm just
second.
kidding.
And we still have this idea of we really don't know what he does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We don't really know the origins. We don't know. Here we go. This is what you're looking for. Whoopsie doopsie. That's not
I
it.
love when that happens.
Hold on. Yeah, we lived that, don't we? What the hecky? Oh, okay.
What?
There you go. And so even today, you know, getting to watch basically the continuity of the Bendu,
Yeah.
we don't really know where he went to. All we really know is that he's been dormant for a really long time, and he's in a place that's intentionally remote because he says, one, your presence is like a storm here. You woke me up from a very long sleep.
Yeah.
And two, did you not think that this place was actually kind of hard to find? He's like, do you think that was an accident?
Yeah, he said it's intentional.
Yeah. So it's like he is obviously affiliated with the ones to some extent because he has the birdie Morai come sit on his little antler, and they obviously have some sort of relationship where, you know, Morai seems to be everywhere. So just wherever there's an important vergence in the Force.
Well, the other thing you have to realize is when we speak of Morai, for those of you who are not so inclined to know who that is already, back in the Clone Wars, when we go to Mortis, Mortis is a world where basically the embodiment of the Force in its different forms. You had the father who is the balance of the Force. The son is the dark side. The daughter is the light side. Morai is what's called a convor. She's like a little chunky little owl. And what's interesting about Morai is that she has a very strong connection to Ahsoka. And so I've often wondered
this thing.
There you go. There you go. Put it on the screen there.
Yeah. Looks like this owl here.
Yeah, it really does. You know what's interesting is that reminds me of The Fourth Kind.
What do you mean? The Alien movie?
Yeah. Like in common, they see an owl and that kind of thing. Anyways, we want to do a little what Jason and Gabe over at Blast Points podcast call the chunky bits, which is kind of a breakdown of, typically that's when they're reviewing something or something like that, but getting forward into breaking down the Bendu So I wrote down a who, what, when, where, why of the Bendu. So in our notes, who is the Bendu? An ancient force user. And when I say force user, I mean he's a force entity.
Yeah, he
He's
doesn't
kind of
seem
made
like a
up of the
force user in the way that you would typically. He's more of a force being.
Yeah, a force being. And obviously in the notes here, he's simply called Bendu. And I wonder if that's, again, in reference to the Dai Bendu. If you look them up, we're talking about tens of thousands of years ago. And this was the order of the Dai Bendu who would, moving forward, turn into the Jedi Order. And so who and what kind of run together. Obviously, the what I have written down here, almost magical, very on par for Rebels.
Yeah.
This is kind of Rebels' specialty, to be on the more mystical side of the Force. And he said that he was, quote, woken from his slumber by Kanan. Kanan at this point in the story has a lot of unrest because A, he's blind. So that's a huge negative.
I'm blind.
And B, he also feels blind in the Force because the Rebels' contention with Thrawn is kind of coming to a head here. And you also have his apprentice, Ezra, kind of losing his way and falling in league with Maul.
Yeah.
And willing to...
Fraternizing with humans.
If you will.
How dare you?
I'm the chief of police. I will always love that little monologue that the human version of that wolf does.
It's pretty hard to watch.
But it makes you wonder, woken from a slumber by an imbalance in the Force, seems like he could be around for God knows how long, which takes us to when is Bendu? And there's no existing timeline for when he came into existence. And
yeah, we don't really know.
Wikipedia wrongfully, in my opinion, has a death date for him. I do not think that that's a thing at all. I don't think he dies.
He clearly does not die.
No existing timeline for his existence, but he's been in type of slumber for ages before waking to assist the rebels against Thrawn. And
what's interesting is you have to believe that he's not necessarily taking sides because his whole thing is I stay in the middle.
Right.
It really seems to me he's like, how quickly can I get these people off my porch? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it makes me wonder if
he's not even withholding the lightning from hitting the rebel ships as they withdraw. He's like, everybody out.
Everybody
basically, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. You know
it's time for he's trying to go back to sleep, basically.
He's a sleepy guy.
And then if his name is in fact a tie to the Dai Bendu, then he may have ties to Force users even before the Jedi. We're talking of tens of thousands of years back in the timeline. We're talking about like the floating freaking, you haven't read the really, really old school comics, but the floating freaking temples in the sky and stuff like that. We're talking like way back in the day. Not that. And then where we've only ever seen him on a planet called Adelon, which is very hidden. It's very remote, very hard to find. Just like what the Bendu says.
Got a bunch of creepy spiders
that I hid the planet. Yeah. And I will say his ability
Bendu needs an exterminator.
He does. He needs a
problem.
An Orcan. It's an Orcan problem. His ability to appear and disappear from the physical plane may indicate that he can travel to other worlds in unconventional ways, which is, again, it's kind of the Rebels' special.
Yeah, while I think he's able, it seems like he's definitely set up shop here because
maybe he is similar to the
his little corner of the world.
Yeah.
He doesn't really seem intent on leaving ever.
No, it strikes me as like that's his. Could he move? I think that he could, but similar to like the Loth Wolves, they have definitely a mythical Force-related side to them. Traveling using the Force, like in the worlds and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're always going to be on Lothal.
Yeah,
it seems similar to that with the Bendu. Bendu obviously is on a different playing field, on a different level of power and timelessness from Loth Wolves.
Yeah. Much less finite.
Yeah, the Loth Wolves are interesting because you have the really, really big one that seems kind of like a Force being, but then you have the regular ones that run with him, but they're much more regular type of animals.
Yeah.
And then this was a very interesting concept that I wanted to discuss with you. Why is Bendu?
Why is Bendu?
So we know who he is, we know what he is, we
He
know where he
exists
is.
to be in the middle. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
What exactly that means, who friggin' knows? He's just a chill dude, you know. He wants to play with Sith artifacts, but not be tempted by the dark side.
Yeah. Do you feel like this is one of those things where the role of Kanan and Ezra and the rebellion that Hera ends up joining the larger, they all end up joining the larger scale war against the Empire. Do you feel like the Bendu wakes up not because Kanan is at such an unrest? It shocks me that he's at so much unrest that the Bendu would wake up. But I wonder if it's because Kanan and his relationship to Ezra and their relationship to everything going on in the larger galaxy is so important that it's like these tiny little things that get set off that change galactic scale history.
Yeah, it seems like we're definitely at a crossroads for Kanan, who leads to a crossroads for Ezra, who leads to a crossroads for everybody. You know, so
Right.
what happens here is definitely more significant than what's happening here.
Yes. It's like a domino effect.
Yeah, a little butterfly effect, if you will. And I think, maybe that's part of it. But then you also have to think about it, in my mind, as like relative noise, where it's like he's been somewhere so remote, so quiet, so unbothered for so long that if you're in a very quiet room, any noise is loud.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe galaxy-wide things are not as
he
crazy.
Seems intentionally removed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
If you have an apartment near a train station
or a car wash,
the crazy train noise or whatever makes sense. But if someone were to try to open up your door, it would wake you up.
Right.
Maybe it's something like that. And I also think Kanan, I mean, for a lot of people, like I've been seeing a lot of different like little videos and shorts and stuff recently where Kanan is like people's like goat Jedi, right at the moment where he's using the Force to stop the explosion from hitting the other rebels, when he sacrifices himself for everyone. And he's so in tune with the Force that it gives him his sight back for like a split second. A lot of people feel like that couple of, we don't know the exact timeline, but that couple of weeks to months leading up to his passing, Kanan is like, if you could just stop time and look up the embodiment of a Jedi, it's Kanan Jarrus from that last little moment in Rebels. So maybe the Bendu helping him find his center. It reminds me a lot when we were watching some of the Bendu clips getting ready for the episode. Kanan's unrest and then coming to balance reminds me a lot of Luke's unrest and then coming back and opening himself back up to the Force. I think that Luke had on purpose shut himself off from the Force in The Last Jedi. That's a little bit different, but just the unrest and the turmoil and the frustration and the depression, obviously being blinded by Maul would send you into a pretty dark place mentally, and him finding the balance, it's like the Force becomes his eyes, and the Bendu plays a huge role in that. So I think that's a really, really interesting thing. And the fact that he's the one in the middle, it kind of is, it makes Kanan kind of go into one of those, his relationship with the Bendu and the way that the Bendu administers and explains the Force is kind of like a sense deprivation chamber where Kanan, there's so much noise going on in the world, like what you're talking about, having a car wash next to your apartment, stuff like that. Then you go, imagine you had that morning, right? And you're stressed out and there's regular everyday stuff. And then you have an appointment and you go into one of those like sense deprivation chambers where it's just like a little like sphere, and you go in there and you put your goggles on and you're in this like super salty water and it just like makes you float. And all of your senses.
If you want a pro tip, by the
way,
way, make sure you don't have any dry skin before getting in there.
Have you done one of those before?
I have, and I had dry skin.
Would you feel
also a little bit too tall for the one that they put me in? So I was either touching my head or my toes.
Oh, that sucks.
And
so you didn't get the full experience.
No. Also, my tinnitus made it. It was insufferable.
That would do it.
Yeah.
Did you last the whole time you're supposed to be in there? Or did you get out prematurely?
I paid for it, so
Okay.
I just sit in there.
Okay. Do you whenever you have that reset button, like the one in the middle talks about, do you think that is his most important gift to Kanan? Is just that internal balance? Like he tells Kanan on multiple occasions, empty yourself so that the Force can be the one that guides you.
I just kind of think of him as like a load-bearing wall in the Force, where it's like if the light side collapses or the dark side collapses, the other one's going to get pulled down as well. And so if he's the one in the middle, then naturally his role would be to reinforce either side. You know what I mean? Like he sees somebody in the light side who's dwindling and needs a prop. And so he's like, hey, I can't fix your eyes, but I can teach you not to need them. Or he doesn't do anything to interfere, on the other hand, between Ezra and Maul's relationship, where he's like, I want to stop seeing Maul. And he's like, well, don't turn around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He doesn't do anything to interfere. He's just there to enlighten.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very good point, because if a Darksider comes to him and is seeking knowledge, the Bendu is going to give him or her similar knowledge of, like,
You'd have
you
to
need
believe
find-
he's going to give them similar enlightenment.
Yeah,
You know
you're
what I
going to
mean?
have to find balance, which the thing is, according to, obviously, it's like, it's still, even though they're trying to make it this ambiguous thing in
Mhm.
today's world, it's, at the end of the day, it's good and evil, light and dark.
Yeah.
You know? And so it makes me wonder, let's say a Bane or a Malgus or someone like that finds the Bendu.
Mhm.
It makes me wonder, do they just count him as foolishness and just keep about their merry way? Because it seems like, to be as strong in the dark as some of those legends are, of the dark side, you can't be balanced.
It seems to, well, I don't know. There's different schools of thought. Like, to not be able to be balanced, I think there's just a different type of balance. Like, Bane was given a glimpse of his true potential, and he kind of crashes out about it and is unable to call on the dark side anymore. And he had to have kind of a revelation of how to interact with the Force in a different way. You remember that story arc when he's in the school? And so it seems like you can definitely be unsettled as a dark side user in the way that you connect with the Force, like where Kanan is struggling to connect to the Force because he's unseated from the balance that he had previously.
Right.
On the other hand, you have to assume that the dark side user is going to be more demanding.
Right.
And I feel like you have to kind of like Indiana Jones it with the Bendu, where you have to come penitent. You know what I mean? Like, you have to come from a place of need. I don't think he's going to respond to force.
Right. Yeah. You can't,
So I think his
he says-
usefulness only goes as far as you're willing to acquiesce
listen.
to him.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe a dark side user is just naturally going to be less inclined to look for
Yeah.
that.
It's like if Moses went to the burning bush and was like, tell me what to do to free the kids. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, he had to be in a place where he took his sandals off and like humbled himself so that
Mhm.
he could be spoken to.
Right.
I think it's very similar. I think that, yeah.
Because
It's-
he's like, I can't fix you, but I can show you if you want, if you'll
Yeah.
listen.
It reminds me of, we talked about it last week as well, but the healer that puts his hand in the
Khalib.
pot.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, when I'm good and ready, I'll tell you what the thing is.
Yeah.
We can bargain, we can talk, we can have a conversation man to man.
Yeah.
But you're not going to torture the information out of me.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, that's a very good point. That maybe the Bendu wouldn't even talk to a Darksider, or they're not in a place mentally where that he could appear to them.
Yeah. I kind of wonder if, not that he would reject help. So how am I trying to say this? I don't think that he would refuse help to a dark side user, but I think a dark side user would have a harder time coming to the place where they could use the Bendu's
Yeah.
influence.
Yeah. And ultimately, if the dark, at the level that someone like Bane is at,
Mm-hmm.
is that considered imbalanced? To be so steeped in the dark side?
Well, you have to believe, because at this stage in Bane's career, he's kind of there's a weird
At his
way that
peak.
the Force is discussed,
Yeah.
in the sense where Bane is like the dark side was spread across too many users.
Uh-huh.
So it seems like there's some sort of finitude to the power that can be accessed by dark side users at any time. I don't know if that's what the Force is like as we understand it right now, but he was like, there's too much power across too many weak users. I need to kill everybody and take it for myself. Whereas now it's like, how many powerful Force users can there be? But at the same time, you think because there are fewer dark side users, they have to be more powerful for there to be balance.
Huh. Yeah, I never thought of it as like a well that was running out of power. I just always felt like
And
the
I
weaker
would
people were just
naturally,
overthrowing the stronger people,
Right.
and there's just a million weak Sith.
but he definitely discusses it with his little side piece.
Yeah.
I always forget her name. It's
Oh man, it's on the tip of my tongue.
it's always right there, but it's
Go ahead.
Githany.
Yeah, there you go.
He's describing to her like the Force is the dark side's weak because it's diluted essentially.
Oh wow, watered down.
Yeah. And so I don't really necessarily think of the Force as that way, but you know, you have to take it as it's presented. So I know that we're talking canon versus legends here, but you know, there is some plane of existence where the dark side has to be a certain amount of concentrated for it to be of any use.
Right.
And so for there to be balance, there has to be power in equal measures.
And we know that he has some connection to, not connection, but he's not like super adverse to the dark side the way that like a Jedi would be, because
Right. And he's like, they're just objects.
He takes the Sith holocron from Kanan, and he's like, objects in and of themselves are not evil. It's the need for power.
Again, is contrary to what we would maybe read in the Bane trilogy. So who knows where,
Yeah.
you know, there are very definite like corrupting aspects to, you know, dark side imbued talismans or whatever.
I think the Bendu's point too is, if you go looking for the holocron, even as how many times have we seen a story, read a book, read a comic, whatever, where the light side user has a part of their brain that in their little italicized thoughts, the reader can see and attain the concept that the Jedi or light side or a good guy or whatever is doing something, but there's a part of them that's like, and maybe when I find this Sith holocron, before I destroy it, I'll get that answer I need, or something like that. And I think that's the Bendu's point, is like, because he seeks nothing, he is incorruptible. You know, it's similar to like Yoda facing his own dark side in the Clone Wars, and then he could really find the wills of the Force. Yeah, you know.
To use another Harry Potter parallel, it's like the mirror of Erised.
Yeah,
you know, the man who is the happiest man in the world would look into it and see himself exactly as he is. He doesn't have any wants, so he doesn't have any leverage. It's kind of like Khalib. Once he sends his daughter off, he's like, can't give me this time.
Yeah.
You got no leverage. Kill me if you want to. I don't care.
I don't care.
Yeah.
And obviously very special to the podcast, you've got the Thrawn connection with the Bendu.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to ask two questions. I think that both of them have pretty strong answers, but it's fun to just discuss. According to online via Wikipedia, it says that he has a death date, which I don't agree with, because he literally says, you know, Thrawn asks him, what manner of creature are you?
He says, one that's beyond your power to kill.
Yeah. And then Thrawn says, we'll see, or something of that sort, and shoots his pistol at him. Now, the Bendu seems to have been somewhat wounded by all of the Imperial might focusing their firepower on the heart of the storm at the Battle of Adelon, which is the Bendu. However, it's cool because there's this crazy storm going on, which is the Bendu, and then all the ATs look up and focus all their firepower on there, and it does have some type of an effect, because the storm dissipates and goes away, and like an asteroid basically comes down, which is the Bendu, which is kind of strange. Like, okay, is he physical? Is he spiritual? Is it animal? Is it mineral? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You would think that it would just go, but you have this asteroid crash.
I was just kind of thinking of him kind of orchestrating the storm from the middle, not the storm itself being the Bendu.
Yeah.
The way,
I mean,
because if it were not that, then it would have equal effect if all the fire was spread across the entirety of the storm, if the entirety of the storm is the Bendu, as opposed to him being damaged by the concentrated fire in the middle of the storm, which is where he was. In my mind, that's the way I watched it.
Yeah, he's definitely orchestrating it, but like the way that the wind and stuff is moving, like his eyes and stuff are definitely, he's a part of the storm, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
For sure. And then
He's definitely up in there.
He's definitely up in there. And then
Physically present in the storm.
whenever he
for sure.
says, what kind of creature are you? And he says, one beyond your power to kill. He says, we'll find out. And he shoots the blaster, but it's similar. It's very similar to like the Obi-Wan death on the Death Star.
Yeah. And because he's naked, we don't know.
There's no clothes.
There's no rapture moment where the car crashes because there's not a driver.
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly. Exactly. Man.
But you also hear him laughing right after the fact.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
we definitely feel like the Bendu's still out there. I think we can come to a consensus.
Yeah, I believe so. I don't think that there's sufficient evidence to say that he's dead. I think we're from a creature that appears and disappears at will to say that his disappearance is evidence of his death. I think that that's not a strong enough argument.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because he disappears all the time anyway.
Yeah.
It's not like.
And the fact that he literally says, you can't kill me.
Mm-hmm. Secondary question. For those of you who have not seen Rebels, there's a moment where Thrawn and the Bendu are having a discussion right at the end of the Battle of Atollon, and the Bendu tells Thrawn, I can see your end. I can see, what he says is, I can see your defeat, as many arms wrap around you in a cold embrace. Now, this is obviously in reference to the end of the whole Lothal business with Thrawn, where the Purrgil, the space whales, attack Thrawn's Star Destroyer, the Chimera, and he's literally being wrapped up in the tentacles of the Purrgil as he's taken away from Lothal to the unknown regions.
Yeah.
To where we find him in Ahsoka season 1. Does Thrawn's reemergence to the known galaxy lessen the power or the effect overall of the Bendu's prophecy?
I would say not, just because defeat isn't the same as demise.
Yeah.
I think Thrawn's
necessarily
in a conflict
death
right now.
Yeah.
The conflict comes to an end in his eventual defeat, and then he regathers himself, comes to an. I think it would be the same to say that the prophecy about Vader was never true because the Sith weren't ended when Palpatine was brought back, et cetera, et cetera. But there's the whole line of a prophecy that misinterpreted could have been.
A prophecy that misread could have
been. And so I just think of it as like, there's nothing definite when it comes to prophecy.
Yeah. I think that in my Star Wars brain, the Chosen One prophecy is it seems so definite, and like, this is what's going to happen and this is the effect of it. And it's because it's like, he'll bring balance to the Force, the way that we've always interpreted it, which is how we're supposed, as the reader or as the watcher, you're interpreting it the same way that the Jedi are interpreting it, which is he kills the last Sith and there's no more Sith. And it seems very like,
I feel like that's the way you're meant to believe it. And maybe the way even George was thinking about it in the original trilogy.
At the time.
And then, he
more stories is more money.
Was thinking about it in the prequel trilogy. We're like, well, maybe there's more to the balance of the Force than just the light being in charge.
Right. So I think we agree on this one as well. The Bendu's prophecy for sure comes to pass, and defeat does not mean demise.
Right.
So it kicks Thrawn, for all intents and purposes, out of the war, which is a huge turning point in the tide.
You have to believe
for the rebellion
Thrawn being
New
removed
Republic
from the conflict is a deciding factor in the conflict.
I would say, here's a good thought. I would say Thrawn being defeated at Lothal is a bigger blow to the Empire than the loss of the Death Star.
Well, yeah, because you like to pull back the Tim Zahn quote that if Thrawn had been in charge at Endor, the Empire wouldn't have lost.
Correct.
Yeah.
Which I still stand by.
Yeah. So
Thrawn is better than the Death Star. That's what we're getting out of this whole episode. No, so yeah, I totally believe that I think that Thrawn's loss to the Empire in the Galactic Civil War is more impactful than that of the Death Star.
Yeah. I mean, the whole idea is that Thrawn's motion towards Palpatine is that, hey, cool ship, dude. Very neat. It's not going to do what you want.
Yeah.
And it's this great show of force, but in the long run, it's impractical for its purpose.
Yeah. And could it have been what Palpatine wanted had episode 4 not happened? Maybe. Because the Tarkin's line, fear will keep
them in line.
Keep them in line. Fear of this battle station.
Yeah.
And then the battle station goes kablooey like 5 minutes later.
Along with Tarkin.
I know. We really kind of screwed the pooch with that, As we get ready to wrap up, future appearances. Do we foresee another appearance from the Bendu with Filoni in charge now?
I'm not going to say yes, but I'm absolutely not going to say no.
Okay. If you were a betting man and you had to split it 100%, yes or no, how much is your yes and how much is your no?
70-30.
70-30. And 30 is
the no.
Is no. So 70% yes.
I think it's more likely that we'll see him eventually than
he's
too cool of an influence, I think, for him to be left.
Yeah.
Just out there forever.
Where do you think we could see him?
So I got
a couple of options here.
Your 3 options here. Ahsoka season 2, Mandoverse movie. I'm gonna go ahead and say a blanket no on Mandoverse movie. I think there's already too much going on. It's not as force involved as our other Star Wars media. Right. I think there's more.
And we
don't
even know for sure what that's going to look like yet.
Yeah. And then we have this Dawn of the Jedi project, an in development film exploring the origins of the Force 25,000 years before the Skywalker saga. I say that that's a likely candidate if we're going to talk about somebody who was there before the founding of the Jedi and the Sith.
Yeah.
I would say it's just as likely in that front that we see more from the ones and maybe like a commissioning of the Bendu, or maybe even a retirement of the Bendu once there are more independent factions that are kind of representing the balance of the Force. But I would say Ahsoka season 2 is a really likely candidate with how involved we're getting out in the unexplored corners of the galaxy where it seems like the Force is more wild.
Yeah, I will say again, of the 3 Mandoverse movie, least likely.
Mm-hmm.
Dawn of the Jedi movie, I can see a world where, in Lord of the Rings, where it's like this many rings to the elves, this many to the dwarves, this many to this. I can see a world where it's like, before the Jedi, before the Sith, before the Purge, before the Rise, before this, there was the Force. Mm-hmm. And you could just do like a prologue, like a monologue, almost like what, oh my gosh, what is that character's name? What's the elf? Is it, God dang it, dude. I'm drawing a blank.
Which one?
The one that does the monologue at the beginning.
Galadriel,
yeah. And I can see a world where something like that takes place.
Mm-hmm.
And
it would be fun if it was from the Bendu.
Yeah. Or at least you could see, maybe there's more than one at some point or whatever. Maybe you're wondering how I got here. I think of the 3, obviously we'll say Mandoverse third most likely.
I would say
Dawn of the Jedi second most likely. I kind of feel like Ahsoka fits that more.
I think because her story is already intertwined in the presence of the Bendu, it just makes the most sense to me.
And a lot of people feel like Ahsoka and Morai, the bird we talked about earlier, have like a really special bond because basically in the Clone Wars on Mortis, the daughter gives her life to revive and save Ahsoka.
Mm-hmm.
I can see a world where, again, Ahsoka,
which I think gives so much more importance to Ahsoka.
Yes.
Than anything that she does on her own. And I feel like maybe.
Yeah, that Mortis arc kind of immortalizes her to an extent. Like she kind of gets the nod. Anakin was supposed to be the father, aka the balance. He doesn't then, but he does eventually. And I don't know. It's kind of, when you look at the ones on Mortis, it's like a very like nice and neat package. And when they all kind of die, it's like, so the son, remind me if I think I'm correct in this, the father dies by the son's hand.
He accidentally kills the sister, I want to say, because then he has that crash out. He stabs the sister with the knife. And then the father stays behind to kind of keep the son in check.
The father dies.
Does he die?
I'm 99% sure. Look it up. I think the father dies. I think
he was on the way out.
Yeah.
You know what I
He's
mean?
trying to pass
The
his
son definitely
duties.
tries to kill the father, but he has a crash out because he accidentally kills his sister.
Oh, maybe he accidentally kills the sister trying to kill the father.
Yes, that it definitely happens. I don't remember the father dying personally. Oh, it says he dies in the final episode by stabbing himself with the dagger to stop his son, to strip his son of power and restore balance. So I guess the son gets power from the father. The father's death would stop the son from toppling the balance.
And the daughter at this point had already given her life to Ahsoka to save Ahsoka. So they basically all cease to exist to some extent.
Yeah, you kind of, mortally wounded by the son while shielding the father from the dagger of Mortis.
Yeah. The weird thing about the Mortis arc is
that's so weird because I love that arc and I've watched it a zillion times. I really didn't remember the father's dying.
It's weird to me that like these are an embodiment of the Force, and then they all three either die or are stripped of their power, and then the world just keeps going.
Well, you kind of have to believe that the son, I think, being weakened by the death of the father, because it's very much like their power stems from the balance of the Force. Yet you see the father convorting with the Jedi, but he also uses lightning. You know, he's like,
yeah, there's a lot of it. It's very, very involved.
So he's obviously the source of the power for the son and the daughter.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense where he cripples the son by killing himself, therefore cutting off basically the source. But you never see the son die, and you have to believe that the son being the only remaining one after that point in time is the reason that there is a stronger balance towards the dark side of the Force moving forward.
The dark side.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the way I've always
It's just weird. Like if there was if the Bible was a movie and then there's like the side quest where they go to this magical place and then Jesus and God the Father both died and the devil was let loose, I feel like the world wouldn't just be like, anyways, keep going.
Right.
You know? But Star Wars is crazy.
Yeah.
But I do think that we have a good chance of seeing him in Ahsoka if he shows up in any of these three and has any like actual screen time. I think it would be in Ahsoka because of the Morai connection.
Right. I believe so.
So
I mean, we've already seen that statue of the father.
Yes.
So there's already something happening here.
Yeah. Dude, you know what is a freaking what is a really, really cool conversation that I'd love to see happen would be the Bendu talking to Baylan Skoll.
Yeah.
Because I think that the Bendu obviously seeks balance. He's the one in the middle. And I think that Baylan obviously doesn't believe in the Jedi anymore because he wishes their ideals were still accurate, but obviously he believes that they fell for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that he's dark the way that you see that glint in Shin Hadi's eye.
Right. And he 100% recognizes that and says, all right, I got nothing else for you.
We're on a different path.
I
would love to see.
Crazy thought.
Okay.
Do you think he takes on the role of the father where Ahsoka takes on the role of the daughter?
Bendu?
No.
Baylan?
Baylan.
Baylan as the father?
He's the one in the middle right now.
I mean, he's definitely...
You know what I mean? Like there's maybe
more middle than dark.
Right.
And then obviously my thought this whole time has been that Shin somehow is going to become Abeloth. I don't know. That's crazy.
Because you have to believe that something has to happen.
Something has to happen to Baylan.
Yeah. Well, I just mean like in the sense of we have these beings who have been around since the creation of time in Star Wars universe. And we've gone a couple of, well, probably not a couple of decades at this point without their being around.
Oh, like in universe, the ones? Yeah, if they died during the Clone Wars, it's been a couple of decades.
In the timeline of eternity, it's a blip on the radar, but you have to think that there needs to be some sort of sustenance for the balance of the Force to continue.
Yeah, that would be freaking crazy. I would love, I mean, obviously...
It's one of those things that I'm like, would be super cool, probably never get to see it.
Yeah. Ray Stevenson, rest in peace, did such a fantastic job. I think that Rory McCann is going to do an amazing job as well.
Yeah, I obviously hate it under any circumstance when a character or an actor who plays a character so well and kind of in my mind defines that character is replaced.
Yeah.
Obviously I get the circumstances here.
Yeah, you don't really
but it's so hard to envision what that character is going to feel like moving forward because it's just not him. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, I think I think so. The good thing is that
I guess what I'm going towards is I hope that the importance of what that character is meant to be isn't lessened because of the change.
right. And yeah, I 100% agree. And the point I was going to make was that my understanding is that Rory McCann and Ray Stevenson were very close.
Right. And
good friends.
His family was like, oh my God, yes, I hope you're the one who takes over the role.
If anybody was going to do it, we want
Right.
you to do it.
It's like, in my mind, when the Rev passed.
Yeah.
And they, what's his name?
They got the guy from Dream Theater.
Portnoy.
Yeah.
Took over because they're like, it's got to be you.
Yeah.
You know, he's
You're
just
the
a good
guy
friend.
that kind of inspired his style.
Yeah.
Yeah. It would be like if anything were to happen, you know, if I was an actor or whatever, I would want somebody really close to me who knows me and knows, because the other thing is like Ray, from everything I've heard and read, like really loved the character of Balin and was very proud to play Balin and really poured his heart and soul into that part. You would want someone who not just knows Balin, but knows Ray and knows what Ray brings to that character, which I think we will get with Rory McCann. I think that he'll do great. So that's the Bendu. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it.
Hope you guys enjoyed the prequel to the Bendu, which was Palpatine and the Dark Side.
Yeah. We'll have to do a whole episode on that because it keeps coming up, the balance of the Sith and the rule of two and all that kind of stuff. So we'll have to do that another time. But
yeah, that'd be a great topic.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, share it with all your friends and family. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok for more content. And remember, the Force will be with you always.
And also, the only family you have here is me.
We'll see you next time.